The Chernobyl disaster, one of the most catastrophic nuclear accidents in history, occurred on April 26, 1986, at the Chernobyl Nuclear Power Plant near Pripyat in northern Ukraine, then part of the Soviet Union. The event began during a late-night safety test of Reactor 4, intended to simulate a power outage to maintain cooling water circulation until the emergency generators came online. This routine test turned tragic due to a combination of design flaws in the reactor and human error. The Chernobyl plant used RBMK reactors, which had several critical design flaws, including a positive void coefficient, making them inherently unstable at low power. During the test, the operators shut down the reactor's power regulating system and its emergency safety systems, including the automatic shutdown mechanisms. As the power level dropped too low, the operators struggled to stabilize it. In an attempt to raise the power, they withdrew most of the control rods, violating operational protocols. At 1:23 a.m., an unexpected power surge occurred, causing an immense increase in reactor output. This led to the reactor's fuel elements rupturing, and a steam explosion lifted the 1,000-ton reactor lid, rupturing the reactor vessel. A second explosion, likely due to the hydrogen accumulated from the steam reaction, exposed the reactor core to the environment and ignited a fire that sent radioactive smoke into the sky. The explosions and the fire released large quantities of radioactive isotopes such as iodine-131, cesium-137, and strontium-90 into the atmosphere. The initial blast killed 2 plant workers instantly, and the subsequent release of radiation exposed first responders and plant operators to lethal doses. The fire, which continued for 10 days, spread radioactive material over much of Europe. Soviet authorities were slow to acknowledge the severity of the disaster. Pripyat, home to around 49,000 residents, was not evacuated until 36 hours after the explosion. The delay exposed the population to dangerous levels of radiation. On April 27th, buses began evacuating the residents, who were told they would be gone for only a few days. In reality, they would never return. The evacuation zone eventually expanded to a 30-kilometer radius, creating an exclusion zone that remains largely uninhabited today. In the days following the explosion, fire crews and plant workers struggled to control the blaze and contain the radiation. Helicopters dropped sand, lead, clay, and neutron-absorbing boron onto the burning reactor from above. Liquidators, a force of over 600,000 soldiers, firefighters, and volunteers, were deployed to decontaminate the area, build a concrete sarcophagus to encase the reactor, and prevent further radioactive release. The health impacts were severe and far-reaching. Acute radiation syndrome, ARS, affected many first responders and plant workers, leading to 28 deaths within a few months. Long-term effects included increased cancer rates, particularly thyroid cancer among those exposed as children. The psychological and social impacts were also profound, with displacement, trauma, and stigma affecting the survivors and their communities. The disaster had significant political and environmental repercussions. It exposed the flaws of the Soviet system, including the lack of transparency and the inadequacy of emergency response measures. The global community responded with increased scrutiny and regulation of nuclear power, leading to improved safety standards and protocols. In the aftermath, the Soviet government initiated a massive cleanup and decontamination effort, which included the establishment of the Chernobyl exclusion zone. This area, spanning 2,600 square kilometers, remains heavily contaminated and largely abandoned. In 2016, a new confinement structure, the new safe confinement, was completed to encase the deteriorating sarcophagus and prevent further radioactive release. Chernobyl remains a poignant symbol of the potential dangers of nuclear power and the importance of rigorous safety measures. The site has become a destination for scientists studying the effects of radiation on the environment and for tourists seeking to understand the magnitude of the disaster. Despite the tragedy, the surrounding area has shown signs of ecological recovery, with wildlife reclaiming the abandoned lands. The Chernobyl disaster serves as a grim reminder of the catastrophic potential of nuclear energy when mismanaged. It underscores the need for continual vigilance, transparency, and adherence to safety protocols to prevent future nuclear accidents. The lessons learned from Chernobyl continue to inform and shape nuclear safety regulations and emergency preparedness worldwide, aiming to ensure such a disaster never happens again.